Welcome back to Mastering Menopause. Today, I just wanted to share an experience that or a kind of a memory that I had of a Valentine's Day that I had. I want to say it was probably around 2005, where my husband got me a box of chocolates. And I was low-key pissed about it because, of course, I was 6 weeks into a diet, and what business did he have of giving me a box of chocolates? I can't eat these, was my thought. And so I would say this particular Valentine's Day was the kickoff for about at least 15 years of solid disordered eating. I already knew, I had some of these weird patterns already, but this is the one that definitely solidified it. I didn't know it at the time, but so I had these chocolates and I said I wasn't going to eat them. And then I was like, what's the big deal? I'll just have one. And so I picked out the very best one. And there's the variety, and there's the one that you're not going to eat, the nougat one or whatever the hell that is. And the one with strawberry cream, I was only going to have that one. And that one was just so damn good that I ended up having 4. Now, I remember those things were somewhere around 70 or 80 calories per. And at the time I was trying to eat 1,200 calories. I was like, holy shit, I just blew so many calories just now on these 4 pieces of chocolate. And so I put them in the pantry. And then literally, I want to say an hour later, here I get this little nudge. I'm like, hey, just have 2 more. It's whatever. You already blew it anyways. Just have 2 more. And so I went and I had 2 more. And I'm looking and there's 6 left. And I'm like, oh my God. All right. So I'm like, all right. And then it wasn't even the best ones left. So I'm like, I'm just going to throw these away. And that way I don't have to think about it. And so I did. I threw them in the trash. And I want to say around 5 o'clock that night, I was like, it would be a really good idea to have just 1 more of those chocolates. And I dug them out of the trash. There wasn't a lot on top, but there was plenty on top where I had to dig out. And I had the 1 more. And then I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to eat the whole box so I don't have to deal with this anymore. And that literally put me into where that solidified in my brain that I can't have these things, that I have no control over these things. And I vow never to have anything like that in the house. This is also the same year that I stopped making Christmas cookies or any kind of cookies for my kids. My baking days were over. I look back at it now and just think, what a freaking waste. What a waste of time and energy, but that honestly was just the place where I was at the time. Now, back then, it was only 5 to 7 pounds that I had to lose, but literally, it was I would do that 3 to 4 times a year. Just years and years of restriction and rules. Really, it was about the freaking rules and creating new rules for myself, constantly, and not being able to stick to these intense rules that I had for myself. But there was some pretty hard and fast ones, and that definitely was no more making cookies, no more buying cookies. I don't think my kids saw cookies in the house at all. I know they didn't because I didn't buy that stuff. And it was just what a waste of time and energy for me to have this restrictive mindset, constantly, like I mentioned earlier, kicking off all of these things that I was doing. That was also my juicing era. And I was definitely searching for something that was going to help me lose weight. And I never once considered, how do I make this sustainable? I never did. So it was very much all or nothing. I was either on a diet or off a diet. And more often than not was definitely that weekly restriction thing where I was dialed in on Monday through Thursday, and then things would start to slip a little bit on Thursday because I was a bartender. I was a bartender for 30 years. So working in the restaurant industry wasn't easy as far as that with alcohol, and definitely we're having all kinds of food available to us. But that on the weekends, all bets were off. It would be hey, I was good this week. And then I'd blow it on the weekends. and then get right back to it on Monday. So very much all or nothing. And that's basically my personality anyways. I think a lot of people are like that, but just because that's your personality, that doesn't mean that you can't change things. And so I used to think that, hey, that's just the way that it is. That's just my personality. But that's actually very much a self-sabotaging thought to have, because you can change things. You have to figure out how to make this sustainable. And I was great at losing weight. I was really good at losing weight. I just sucked really bad at maintaining it, not realizing like, what is it going to take to actually maintain this? And obviously with the methods that I was using, 1,200 calories and doing just a ton of exercise, like that wasn't sustainable. I was training for marathons, and at one point I had considered doing an ultra marathon, because obviously training for a marathon wasn't stringent enough to keep my weight in check. You can see the pattern here, right? All this bullshit that we tell ourselves. It's, oh my God. But it's just funny. So my husband sent me some chocolate. So my husband is traveling. He's been traveling a lot. He is in New Hampshire and I am in Utah. So he sent me some wonderful chocolates from Chatham. And they are so good. And these babies, they're like 120 calories a piece. Like these are like legit chocolates. And I looked, I was like, yeah, just curious how many calories are in these things. And I ate two and I was fine, right? And they're in my pantry right now. They're not calling me anymore. And so once I learned how you can have these things, they don't have to rule your life. That's where food freedom is. And so for my personal story, I've told this before, but in 2019, I hired a coach. And by 2020, within 5 months, I had lost 25 pounds. And I was able to keep it off, and we were doing less cardio, and I was actually eating more food. And so this is what prompted me to become a coach. I'm like, I have to share this with everybody, because all the stuff that I was doing was so hard. And at the end of the day, this was actually so easy compared to what I was doing. Now, I'm not going to say that a weight loss journey is easy, because it isn't by any means. However, it does not have to be as hard as we make it out to be. And so now I was able to learn how to actually maintain that weight loss because of the method that I used, just continued on. It wasn't like I pulled out, oh, no more chocolate, no more sugar, no more alcohol. And that's the method that I used. That's the only thing that I knew, was to take out everything good out of my life and just beat myself into the ground with exercise. And so that is not what we did at all. In fact, we started tracking macros instead of counting calories. For me, it was 1,200 calories, right? Counting out my little almonds. And then once I hit 1,200 calories, then I would be done. And because of that, I would just wait to eat for as long as possible. Oh my God, intermittent fasting. Oh my God, the best thing ever. Once I like latched onto that, okay, I can deny myself eating until 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then have those calories available to me. So that very much tied into my personality. And then, of course, we had keto. Man, I ketoed so hard for 2.5 years. I had this like keto mojo thing where you blew into it. This stuff was expensive too. There was the keto strips and the keto mojo. It would measure your ketones, and then there was the breath thing. And I spent so much money on so much stuff, products and pills and like all kinds of stuff. Like an embarrassing amount of money that I've spent on this stuff. And so finally learning like macros, when you follow macros and you're tracking your protein, and this is why, guys, like always, I'm always about the protein, because this is the secret sauce. This is, if you can get your protein to where it needs to be, for most women, it's going to be anywhere from 125 to 150, then that is going to help keep you feel full and satisfied. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be hungry all the time. I like to eat. So making sure you're prioritizing protein helps keep you full so that you are not hungry. So now I can have a big breakfast during the day. And this is one thing, right? If I have breakfast, then I'm just going to keep eating throughout the day. That was so true for me. I didn't realize that actually your body, once it gets the calories that it needs, it will just shut off. But for me, I was like so much like in that restrictive mindset. Like if I allow myself to eat, then I'm just going to keep eating throughout the day. So I think this is pretty common because I hear this once in a while from women. They're like, yeah, I don't eat breakfast because if I eat breakfast, then I'm just going to eat the rest of the day. I'm like, no shit, you're supposed to, right? You are supposed to. But when we're in this restrictive mindset, we're like, oh God, no, I will not eat breakfast. And then I'm just going to bank all my calories for the rest of the day. So I totally get it. But I forget where I was going with this. But, oh yeah, so having meals, right? And just feeding my body appropriately. And now, like at the end of the day, so I front load my protein, like now I have a bigger breakfast and bigger lunch than what I used to have for sure. And so now my dinners tend to be, if I'm just like on my usual bullshit, aren't even that big because I've already eaten like so many calories that I'm not really hungry. That's the rhythm that I have set up for myself. It's also so freeing to not have to worry about, oh my God, if I have this chocolate, then I'm not going to be able to stop. And I don't have that anymore. I will say there are certain foods that I just can't have in the house. What is it? It's that Trader Joe's, I forget what it's called, but it's like the caramel popcorn. I know there's a name for it. I can't have that stuff in the house. Like literally, if I open the bag, and this bag weighs, I don't know, it's a couple of pounds, right? If I open that bag, I'm gonna have at least 2 servings, and then I'm gonna roll it back up, and then I'll put it in the pantry. It will literally keep calling my name. So there are definitely some foods that I just can't have because I am not gonna be able to say no to them. In fact, if I would have to throw them in the trash, in fact, I would have to get that bag wet and then throw it away because then I wouldn't dig back in. So I know, you know what? I just can't buy that stuff anymore. But like the chocolates, like that's not a big deal. Dove, I love Dove mini chocolates, the little Dove bars. The ice creams, love those. I don't have a problem. I can just have one of those. But yeah, there are certain foods that I'm not going to be able to say no to. Like any kind of pretzel, peppermint barky kind of situation, like yeah. But so just knowing like what those foods are for me, yeah, so it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have them, but that's not something that I'm going to buy because I know that's something that I can't resist. And not that I can't have those things, but I'm just going to save my calories, like some of those kind of things for like when I go out and have a dessert or something like that. And so really just enjoying what life has to offer and not worrying about, not sweating the small stuff. Hopefully this is helpful for you. I do have a 4-week program coming up. It's the first time that I'm offering this, and so I'm curious how this is going to go, where we are going to spend 2 weeks in maintenance coming out of a restriction situation and show you guys, you know, how to incorporate some of those foods that you love. The ladies, they already have their starting macros. The least amount of calories is 1,900 for one of the girls. She's already lean, very short and petite. But most of the ladies are around 2,400 calories. And so they're like, whoa, this is a lot of calories, right? We're at maintenance, right? They're not going to gain weight or lose weight. We're at maintenance calories. And then that's going to set them up for an effective fat loss phase. So as long as they can hit their protein goals and hit their carb goals as well, then they're going to be set up for an effective fat loss phase, which is going to be more of a precision phase. And so they're going to be able to lose anywhere from 5 to 9 pounds in this phase. And I know I just talked about restriction. Here's the thing. We're not restricting anything as far as the deficit goes, except that, yeah, we're not having alcohol and we're not having like candy and stuff like that. We're prioritizing whole foods. We're prioritizing protein, vegetables, fruits, and fiber. Right? And this is for 2 weeks. And so I call this a health phase. Both of these are health phases, guys, right? And so spending time out of a diet is going to be so helpful for your diet if you do it with intention, right? I'm not talking about binging on the weekend, right? Ooh, I'm going to help set up my diet, right? That's not what I'm talking about. This is about being intentional with the calories that are coming in. This is how you learn food freedom. This is how you realize, wow, I have 2,400 calories. Guess what? They're not going to be filling up their day with kale and quinoa. That's just not going to work. They're going to have things like English muffins, maybe a bagel, maybe cream cheese, right? And I know they're going to be like, what? We're allowed to have that? Yes, all the things that you've told yourself that you can't have, and then yes, we're going to bring those back into your diet. It was just funny. I was on my morning walk and just thinking about, like, dang, so pissed at my husband for sending me a box of chocolates 20 years ago. Was that 20 years ago? Yeah. And to the point where now I'm like, oh my God, yes, thank you so much for these chocolates. Love you. And I was just able to have just two, and they're just sitting in my pantry now. So I have to appreciate how far I've come in my journey and the changes that I've made. And oh my God, the mental anguish that I put myself through, and I just don't have that anymore. I don't have to think about this stuff anymore. I have other things to think about, other things to worry about, like my business, and it's just taken so much off of my plate that really occupied like so much of my day. Was hopping on that scale and what am I going to eat today and what am I not going to eat today, more than likely, and how am I going to start over again and vow to be perfect this week, and how I just don't have those thoughts anymore. If you are currently tracking macros or have experienced tracking macros and you want to check out this program, then check out the link. The program is called the FitAF Metabolic Fat Loss Accelerator. And like I said, we're spending 2 weeks in maintenance, and then we'll go 2 weeks into a deficit. You can pick what kind of deficit you want to go into. And then we start February 23rd, so that's Monday. If you sign up now, then you're already going to get your starting macros. So a lot of ladies have already started. So, they have a little bit of a jump on it. You're also getting access to the membership site that has some sample meal plans in there. I'm putting a shopping list in there today. You're also going to be getting workouts, so 3 days a week of training either at home or at the gym. Hey, stop. It's on our scratchy pad. So we'll call this a day. Check out the link. And if you know somebody, if this story resonated with you at all, then share this with somebody that this might be helpful for. I would appreciate that. Tag me. I'd love that if you would tag me and sharing the episode. And if you have any questions about like where to even start, then just reach out to me. I am an open book. The best way to get a hold of me, honestly, do not email me. I'll be slow to respond. The fastest way to get a hold of me is through Messenger. So, all right. I hope that you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.